dreads off probably like a year after I left Boston, because I was living in Lewiston, Maine, trying to find a job, and forget about it, like trying to find a job, period, let alone looking like a white Rastafarian. So,
I was gonna say, man, if you
not really happening. So
I didn't know if we could actually speak like this if you still had dreads. White people in dreads is scary.
Yeah, well, you know,
it was a different time.
This is the late '90s. You get really into profane existence and shit. You know,
yeah.
You want to be like you're in nausea or misery or something. You know?
Oh, that's too good. Classes to be in.
Yeah,
for lack of a better word.
I still love the music.
But what is it? You were telling me upstairs, right? What's Livingston?
Lewiston, Maine. Yeah.
He's telling me that there's a town up in Lewiston. It's like the one shitbox town up there.
Yeah,
it's like Lowell or Lawrence.
It's a dead mill town.
Imagine there's a bunch of them up there.
Really? I thought Lewiston was like the only one that was really.
I've heard of it, but I didn't know it was
Maine's
like
a big
that.
state. The further you get north, you run into some like weird fucking people up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some like have seen the fucking like the scary shit. Like people who look like they've been to fucking like Vietnam and back.
Yeah.
That's where Rambo's from, I think.
Oh yeah. Is anything AG saying gonna end up getting recorded? By the way.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Okay. All right.
I think that would work. I mean, what's up, guys? This is the PogoHogs coming at you. Number 3, sorta. Me and this guy made it number 2. Thanks for all the likes and shit. It's working. It's got us doing it again. I guess Pat. I know him as Pat Class Action. But you can, that was literally like 20 years ago. AG forgot the other microphone, so he's going to be a little sorry, man. I'm just saying.
I forgot my keenness too, but I won't let that stay.
So he might be a little quiet today, but I wouldn't have it any other way without him in it. So yeah, man. I can't believe I'm doing this. So we were talking about this earlier, but just let's get this out of the way fucking real quick. We recorded, and I've seen it over and over again, the first episode. We did the second episode. I haven't got to see it since we rewatched it the first night, but the first one, you bring up the election in the end. Oh, yeah,
let's
dude.
get this
sorry,
out of the way.
man. Let's get this out of the way. So that was like what?
Another downer.
Yeah, that was like a week and a half before, and but then we recorded again. So as far as everybody else knows what we're talking about, we were still 2 weeks behind, but we hadn't talked about it when it was like 2 days before the election, and you had brought up that it looked.
Changed between those 2 episodes, though.
But no, it did, because I remember you brought up that, because I was saying, oh, Donald Trump don't have a fucking chance because the whole grab the pussy thing. But in a week's time, you specifically said to me, like, he's climbed right back up there. It's like, it's looking grim.
Well,
and
we didn't think it was going to happen.
No, me neither.
I think it was a situation where like a lot of people were like, yeah, and like there's nothing he could have done. Like he could have killed a puppy on national television, and people were like, well, he's gonna bring our jobs back.
I fucking hate dogs.
It's like, yeah, exactly. He's like, well, those dogs need to get jobs or they're dead.
Right?
Whatever.
Yeah. Like I knew I did that.
So,
But yeah, so he won. Just not that you guys don't all know that already, but wow, we're
breaking news.
We're
president.
We're in rough shape.
Yeah, so I don't know. We're going to be living in a dystopia shortly. I don't know what else to say, really.
Jesus Christ. So Pat, yeah, so we got you. You're the first guest here, bud.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So you've been, we were talking about it a little bit. We weren't the closest, but we never had any problems, which I can't say.
Yeah, like I have a, like I was talking about giving you my whole timeline upstairs. Like I have a kind of a unique experience in Boston because I'm not, if you can tell from my lack of an accent, not that everybody around here has a Boston accent that's from here, but I'm from upstate New York. This was my, like, I got to get out of my hometown and move somewhere cool with a cool punk scene, because I was 21 and wanted to see the rest of the country. And I actually traveled cross country trying to find a new town that I liked. And actually Boston was the first one I came to. And I was like, what? Boston.
Where?
Boston?
Where were you living?
Oh, where was I living? No. Oh, I was from Syracuse. New York.
No, but where did you end up living in Boston?
Dorchester. Right. Actually,
I remember that place.
Yeah. You gotta get a bell every time someone says Dorchester.
Ashmont, yeah. Actually, first I lived in Lower Alston. I lived with Krusty Craig for 3 or 4 months, and that didn't work out. And I ended up,
like Krusty Craig, you said?
Yeah, I lived with Craig.
How was that?
Not great. Craig's doing awesome now. Like
Yeah,
he's in a
probably
really
be a
good
totally
place.
different
But we were
situation.
both dealing with a lot of weird personal turmoil and stuff at the time. So it was, it was actually a girl that I was dating at the time. We both lived with him and we broke up and I moved to Ashmont. So yeah, I was living in Dorchester. I met all you guys, and it's funny because I mean every little scene or whatever the hell you want to call it has all these little divisions, and I felt that like I kind of got to hang out with everybody. Like I hung out with all like the sort of like crust fund kind of kids that hung out in Harvard Square that were from like the suburbs of Cambridge and Lexington, and well, Cambridge isn't a suburb, but Lexington and beyond. I hung out with like the kids that hung out in Copley too. I hung out with everybody. I hung out with skinheads. I hung out with metal dudes.
So you were what they would have called a crew jumper, right? Crew hopper? Was that the term they used to use, those bastards?
I guess. I never got that. I mean, thankfully.
No, because they liked you.
Yeah.
I was a crew hopper because I wanted to go to Harvard Square on Friday instead of sitting in Copley all day again, and like you get there and just feel all weird.
But like,
I met you at the Rice House, and I think that's like, you seem like you were really tight with like that particular.
well, those were the first people that I met. Like Ross Noyes was a
good
guy,
fucking guy.
a guy that like I stayed with him in Central, him and that skinhead dude Rage. And I crashed with them on my way back to Syracuse. I had like $50 to my name, and I was just like, I want to hang out with these dudes for as long as I can before I have to go home when I completely run out of money. So I loved it. But hanging out with your particular group of friends was awesome because everybody was super genuine. Because there were people, and I'm not going to name names or anything, but there were people in the punk scene or whatever that I ran into, people in general, that were like wicked stuck up and like snobby and didn't want to even know you. And you guys definitely didn't fall into that category. Like nobody gave a shit about politics, or be it personal politics or regular politics, which was cool.
We
So,
care, but not enough for it to interfere in a relationship
right,
with
yeah.
else, right? Yeah.
There was no, but I had that kind of thing where, and again, I hope I don't fall into the pit of like talking trash about people because they were
it's Boston,
because
what do you
they
want?
were all super nice, but.
We believe about names anyway.
But no, not going to name names because a couple of them are still very good friends of mine. I love them to death. But there were a couple. There was that house in Dorchester that was like all like serious anarcho kids and a lot of like bike messenger type like Lucy Parsons volunteers. And I got the worst vibes from that place, like hanging out. And a couple of the people that were there, and I will name names because they're awesome dudes, and I still love them, like Ken Brown and Mark Lasky and those guys. Like I liked them a lot, but it seemed like a lot of their little like followers and stuff at the time were a little just too over the top for me. I had a different philosophy on my approach to life than them. Not that at the time had my own political beliefs that were more in lockstep with than not with theirs. But it just and also I was wicked young and had really bad like social anxiety and shit. So I thought everybody was out to get me anyway, which is part of the reason I bounced and went to Maine and just like needed to get out of, because I hadn't lived in a big city. Boston's, as far as major American cities goes, is kind of small. And I think part of the reason that I came here was that it had sort of the same vibe as like Syracuse, because Syracuse is a college town and it's all about you versus the students, and it was kind of that on a grander scale. I think that's why I felt like
major city scale.
I belonged here like more than anywhere else. Like I went to Chicago, it was just too overwhelming. I went to San Francisco, everybody was on fucking heroin. Like I was just like, yeah, I really like Boston. I like Harvard Square, So.
Well, I was gonna say that to you earlier, like you when you were telling me about Syracuse having like the divide, the highway divide,
redlining, yeah,
and then you were telling me about Gainesville and how that was like. Would you say there was like either like the crunchy folk punk kind of thing?
That's a big thing down there. That and like the newer DIY pop punk stuff. And it's like I don't have anything.
But it was kind of segregated, so what are you saying?
No, it seemed like everybody there was like really nice and they had their own thing, but there was just nothing, at least music wise, that was going on that really interested me.
See, that's the thing.
I like
that's
hardcore.
Cool about Boston.
I like hardcore and death metal. Like it's just not my, it's not my scene.
That's what's cool about Boston is you got everything here.
Yeah,
and the people that come along with it. Like, the word genuine, who fucking knows these days? But like, if you want to go be a metalhead kid, you can find the kids that not only listen to it, but like straight up look like fucking Slayer, the fucking Metal Blade years.
Yeah.
You can find obviously the decked punk kids. You can find the dirty punk kids. You can find the weird rock and roll dudes that look like Rod Stewart.
Well, and I think And I think a big part of that is because it's like the biggest college town in the U.S. and there's just a constant influx of new people and a lot of people moving.
Well, and that's
here.
the thing you were saying about us, how we felt sound genuine and shit, and we come off as genuine or whatever. I always thought that was because I've heard that from a lot of people. I always just chalk that up as that's because we're actually locals.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like, well, we're here for each other because we actually grew up with each other as fucking children. You know what I mean?
Right.
And happened to all get into the same weird, like I said to you earlier, different lifestyle that not many people really touch on. Like the traveling and the fucking traveling. And everywhere you go, you end up into another situation that's pretty similar to the last. Like the people, it's like a fucking brotherhood, the underground rock and roll thing.
Oh,
like,
sure,
you
absolutely.
literally can go and like as long as you don't make any major mistakes and your name gets out there, which is a lot harder to do nowadays because of social media.
Sure.
But you could fucking go to California and not even know anyone out there. Run into one right person and you'd have a couch to stay on until you get your fucking life
That was the
together.
beauty of like when I was traveling. Like I came one hair away from like hopping trains, and I'm glad I never really got into that because it just
dangerous,
seems like
man.
gnarly, and a lot of the people that do it are terrible. But I got around different ways when I went cross country that first time. I believe we just sucked it up and took a Greyhound.
Not a bad way to travel, if you ask me.
Yeah, me and my friend Shayna, who I'm still friends with to this day from Syracuse. She never really came back to Boston, but she was with me on that trip. But we met a kid named Tony from Chicago in Harvard Square, and then we randomly saw him in Chicago like a couple of weeks later, and he was like, "Oh yeah," and then we went to a party. And we met this kid, Chris, who was like, I'm driving to San Francisco. And I was like, awesome, I'll help pay for gas. You know, and I don't know if stuff like that happens as much as it used to. I'm sure it does.
I was just going to say that to you. Like,
know?
How does it make you feel that, like, why was that dude, what'd you say, from Chicago, right? Well, why would he happen to be in Harvard Square? Because it was the place to go. Does it make you feel shitty that, like, nowadays you can't just go to Harvard Square or Copley or any of those places we used to hang out with? Like you were saying before, kids don't hang out outside anymore. It's like
They don't.
is it
Everybody
like
hangs
that?
out online,
Is
you know?
is that how it is everywhere? Not just in Boston? Like if you went to Chicago, there's not like certain parts. Because I
was
mentioned
already-
Alston to him, and he was like, no, not even.
It was
And I
already
well,
like that in Chicago, not because of technology or anything like social media, because it didn't exist yet. But it was already like that in Chicago as far as hanging out. There was nowhere to hang out on the street because of gentrification, and like we stood around. There's like that. It was like a trendy kind of clothing store, I think, called the Alley, and we were hanging out on whatever street that is in Chicago, and we couldn't stand around for more than like 5 minutes without a cop telling us to move. Same way,
That's fucking.
I have family in Cincinnati, and that was like one of the first places I went where there was like real decked looking punks everywhere.
Yeah?
And
When was that?
that I went there a bunch of times when I was in high school. And
Jake used to go to Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was
Because he
it's-
has an uncle out there. His uncle was supposed to take him to sorry to cut you off, but his uncle was supposed to take him to a Reds game, and Jake was taking too long to get ready. So he pulled the like, all right, I'm leaving without you, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing like you do to your kid if they don't want to leave a store or whatever.
Bye.
And
Yeah.
he fucking left, jumped in his truck and left him, Jake, sitting on the front porch, locked out of the house, and left and went and ran errands. Left him sitting there for 45 fucking minutes on the porch, dude. And then came back, and they said they got to the game at third inning and shit, but he was freaking out. He was 7 years old.
Oh
sitting
no!
on the front
Oh,
porch,
okay. I was
dude.
like, I was thinking like he was like 15 or
No,
something.
he was
Oh,
7,
that
dude.
sucks. That's
He's
not
like,
a cool thing to do to a little kid.
No, well, he wouldn't get out of the shower, and the guy was like, "Listen, we only get 10 minutes for showers because of like the water system or whatever." And Jake's like, "What the fuck you talking about, water system? I'm from Weymouth."
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the guy's like, "Fine, I'm leaving."
Yeah, Cincinnati was a cool town. I haven't hung out
I
there
hated
in
it, yeah.
ages, but when I went there was a cool record store. It was like the year before I went traveling. I wanted to go somewhere, so I
Cool.
I went to Rochester, New York for like a little bit.
Do you know James and stuff?
Oh yeah, me and James go back about 20 years.
Oh,
I've
good.
known him
Yeah, I love
forever.
him, man.
Yeah, hopefully gonna see him soon in Salem because Rotten UK is playing.
Tell him
end
to
of
come
this-
do the fucking podcast because I want him to come down here.
Yeah, I definitely will. He'll probably see this. I would think I'll pass it on to him anyway. But yeah, I met because like the town I grew up in had a great hardcore scene, but I went through a period of being obsessed with UK 82 or whatever, old hardcore, old punk, and I was like. Yeah, and I just wanted to see what it was all about. So I started going to Albany, which had like a pretty cool punk scene.
I hated
and,
Albany.
And
too.
there was.
This is also years later that
I love Albany. I go to Albany almost more than I go to Syracuse now. When I go back to upstate, but yeah. So I ended up going to Rochester because John Ozels lived there. That's when I met him. and James, and there were punk rockers there, because at that time that was very important to me. Now, obviously, I've been over that, like caring what subculture somebody belongs to, but at the time I wanted to meet, and then so you can imagine the first time I came to Harvard Square, and it was even when Harvard was still on starting on the decline of like not a lot of people hanging out. I mean, the first night I came, it was like full of punk rock kids, and I was just like, "Holy shit, this is awesome," And I ended up
like
the Pit,
I thought it was called the Pit because the punks named it the Pit. Because I literally thought it was like their turf. Like that's how many punks were there. I didn't realize like it's been the Pit probably forever, but
yeah,
it's like because it's certainly not where the punks are now.
Well, it's funny because immediately after moving here, like half the people stopped hanging out, and I started working there. Like I first worked at the Store 24. I worked with like Jasper and Fernando and those guys at the Store 24. And then I got a job at Moto Photo, which was in the Garage Mall, long gone. And it was funny because as soon as I moved there and I had to work there, I was like, this sucks. I don't, because I'd walk past these fellow crusties, who'd, traveler kids who'd be asking me for money. I'm like, I'm dressed exactly like you. I'm like,
dude,
like,
that's...
it's like if you were actually my friend and I actually knew you, I'd buy you a sandwich or something to have a beer with you, but I don't know you from Adam. Like, fuck off. Like,
yeah, no, I get that to this day. Not necessarily from like traveler kids or anything, but just from the homeless in general, because I work by Central Square, and I'm like, they'll be like, like, can I get $1? Well, whatever. Can you buy me a sandwich? Do you have a cigarette? Like, whatever. And I'm just like, every single time, my go-to thing is I stop, look myself from head to toe, and I look back at them, and I'm like, what about me makes you think I have anything to fucking give you? Like, you probably make more money doing what you do, because I've done it in serious situations, not just panhandling because I was a punk, but I've been homeless and actually had to do it to get by in life.
Yeah.
And if we find the right spot, you can make the right money.
Yeah.
So you probably make more money than I actually make, and I pay fucking bills, dude. Like,
yeah.
What about this makes you think I have anything for you? Did you just see that guy in the suit just go flying around me, you dumbass?
Yeah, I panhandled once, and I was just like, I feel like, because I wasn't like a rich kid that was pretending to be poor or anything. I had some money that I saved up from a job, and like it was me and that girl Shayna, and we were hanging out with Gerbil. And he was like, yeah, man,
I haven't heard in fucking decades.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, man, I'll show you what's up. I'll show you how to live on these streets. I'm like, all right, okay. And like we sat outside of, I think the Uno's that used to be in Harvard there, and it was just like asking people for leftovers and asking people for money. I was just like, this is not for me. Like this just, no, I'm not doing this again.
Inspiration.
Like, it's like I had like, like a couple $100 saved up or whatever to travel with. And it's like, what, I don't have to do this, and I'm not going to do this. So
just a couple $100 nowadays get you nowhere.
Yeah, I know. It's
one wrong night at the bar is everything.
Yeah, pretty much, man. Like, or for me, one day at Armageddon Records.
Right.
So, yeah. So here we are now.
That's right.
And
speaking of now, were you gonna say something?
No.
Well, what I was gonna say about now, and I know you have other things to say that we're gonna get into, like being an adult and all that. Fucking, you know what I noticed about like our generation? I know like you guys are like what, a year or two apart. I'm a year or two apart. Like he's a little bit older than you. I'm a little bit younger.
How old are you, Ken?
38.
Okay, yeah, you're 1 year older than me.
And then I'm a couple years younger than you guys. So. But I noticed it's like you don't see it specifically in like the subculture, which is funny because my dad. All right, this is where I'm getting at. My dad went fucking straight bald when he was like 18, like bald, Hulk Hogan shit. And it's like right now, if he grew his hair long, it would be like the same hair pattern, And he always told me like your hair's gonna fall out every time I'm dying and all that shit. And now. My hair hadn't fallen out, and there's very few of us that you have a fucking great head.
I have a luscious mane.
Man. I was looking at it.
You guys speak for
upstairs.
yourselves, and I'm definitely fucking working on it.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean,
noticed it though.
I think there's some credibility to the idea of if you keep hold of the stuff that keeps you happy as a kid. It doesn't mean that you don't. I mean, I take care of business. I have a real ass job. I'm a healthcare professional. I'm a CAT scan tech. I own a house. I just had my first child. I pay my bills, but when I have some free time, which precious little of, I'm doing something like this. I catch a band if I can. I go into my record room, man cave in the basement, and throw on, throw on some Exodus or, Chaos UK or whatever. Listen to music, whatever. And I think that there's something to be said for that. Everybody, and this isn't me trying to toot my own horn, but especially people I work with are like, wait, you're how old? I'm like, yeah, I'm 38. They're like, you seem so young. And I don't know if that's just like naivete or what. I'm like, well, I was straight. Not that they know, anybody I work with knows what it is, but I was like, I was straight edge for like over 10 years, like in my 20s, and maybe that preserved me, like pickled me for like, I've been catching up lately, but like, with having beers and shit.
It might not even be like the way you look either. It might not even be what they mean. No.
Yeah, it might just be my general attitude.
Just the fact that like I said, the way we've lived our life, how many fucking people at your work goes in with a fucking Iron Maiden shirt?
Oh well,
and a denim jacket.
I wear scrubs at work anyway.
Right. But they don't ever see you like wearing like a leather jacket or something.
Sometimes, once in a blue moon, if I have to pop in, in street clothes, they'll see me in my uniform.
There's nobody else there looking like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's
like
toned down.
Yeah,
we're all toned. I mean, even I'm toned down from back in the day, but like.
No, dude, I think the punk attitude definitely keeps you younger. You're totally right. I mean, you can see guys that are like even like 10 years old in this, and they don't look like they're that much older.
Especially if they're still into it. That dude fucking Opie, the guy still sits at the bar, still posts like music on the internet.
Yep.
That's all like 80s punk rock.
Yeah,
like,
he loves it, man.
It's fucking great.
I mean, there's a certain thing with like, I think like when you're excited about something and it really captures your heart, and you're passionate about it, you see people drop off. You see people. Whatever, like it's not for everybody for a lifetime thing. It's fine, but you do see people like go completely normal, and that's totally cool. If that's what makes them happy, if that's what they want to do. But there's something about lifers that may really, and it sucks because people still have kind of a stigma or a negativity about still liking the stuff you liked when you were a teenager, and I don't understand that.
No, it's
especially
crazy.
Because there's plenty of people that are still passionate about organized sports. And stuff like that they were into when they were a kid or whatever, I don't, but whatever, it's fine. Like,
it's funny because like I always assumed like the feeling I got from a lot of the people, like your friends in particular, which is why it was always so nice. Like when we had those car rides and shit, I was like, wow, this dude's fucking way different than those other guys. And he's super fucking nice, and he's just stoked that I'm driving him to the goddamn train station. He's like actually appreciative. Like that's so weird. Like I always got the feeling from like a lot of other people that they didn't give me a chance because they didn't think I would be a lifer. And it's like, dude, I don't know anything else. And don't get me wrong, I like you said, people go normal and stuff, and I've had my phases. I've tried to do it.
Me too.
And it's just never worked for me. So much so that I ended up being a lifer because I didn't know anything else. So it's like, what else more did you fucking want from me? Jesus Christ.
I mean, I'll dress nice, when I feel like it.
Oh,
like I got a closet full of like fucking overpriced polo shirts, Fred Perry's, and whatever. And I like if I go out to eat, with my fiance, or if my parents are in town, I like dressing up nice.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
But like, I also have like 300 band shirts, and I'm a grown man. So
I only have band shirts and wrestling shirts. I have a Bray Wyatt shirt upstairs.
Oh, nice.
And now we got dreads, and I'm so pissed.
Oh, I know. What
the fuck?
All right, let's talk wrestling. I just started watching Raw again for the first time in like maybe 2 or 3 years.
Dude, Survivor Series is on tomorrow. I don't know if you have the network, but if
I don't. I canceled it.
And you can't get back up here tomorrow.
Since that Rumble where who won where I was pissed off.
Was it either Roman Reigns or Batista?
It was the Batista thing pissed me off, but I still watched. The following year with Roman Reigns, I was like, I'm fucking done with you people.
Dude, I'm
done.
Check this out. So the Royal Rumble was always my favorite, and I was in jail during that Royal Rumble, and that Monday night after the Royal Rumble was when that first blizzard started that we was talking about from 2 years ago.
Awful
and
blizzard.
And fucking Raw was in Connecticut. So Raw ended up getting canceled. So they did this weird episode from the WWE headquarters building. It was really weird.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And then the last hour of Raw, they played the whole Royal Rumble match. And now I'm fucking in jail. I'm like, I am getting the whole fucking Royal Rumble match just from last night. No one in jail knows who won the Royal Rumble or even gives a fuck. The only thing they know about Royal Rumble is that they think I look like fucking, what's his name? Fucking, Seth Rollins because of my hair. At the time, I had like you know, he had a shaved face and my hair was a lot more blonde and he had the blonde thing going.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing anybody in fucking jail knows about wrestling. It's like, you look like that dude from wrestling. That's it. So nobody knew. So I'm getting the fucking brand new Royal Rumble in my room. My celly was cool. I had to deal with him. I know wrestling's on for 3 hours. You let me watch wrestling on Mondays. You can watch whatever the fuck you want for the rest of the week. I just have to see the Bella Twins come out, and I'll be happy. And I watched it. And fucking Roman Reigns won the fucking goddamn Rumble.
After that, man,
fucking miserable.
It wasn't like a deliberate, like I stamped my foot, like but I just stopped caring. And then recently, like, you know, I've had like mornings. I have Fridays is my day to hang out with my little guy. So we just hang out and watch TV, and I play with him and stuff, and change his shitty diapers, and you know, do whatever. Watch him progress as a human, which is lovely. And you know, I'll play cartoons and stuff. But one morning I was like, why don't I see what's going on Raw? All right, and it's not bad, but I definitely saw that Bray Wyatt Dread thing on the last one. I was watching it on Hulu, and I was like, oh man, why?
Yeah.
But you know, I mean,
I'm fine with the Beards thing. Like, I'm not fine with the Beards thing. How it's so popular right now, but I'm fine when you're that big bushy guy.
Yeah.
That has the big bushy beard and the big hair. And
works for that Strong Throwman or whatever his name.
Oh yeah. He shaved his head into a mohawk now. He looks like a weirdo, but
that guy's a beast.
Yes, he is.
Holy
but
shit.
you should watch, because now it's like they've completely phased everyone out. It's a totally new generation.
Yeah, all the NXT guys are pretty much all called up.
Come up like Samoa Joe. NXT pay-per-view is actually tonight.
No shit.
Samoa Joe is like headlining it, so that means since he's already been the champion and lost it, now he's having his rematch. That means he's at that level where he's going to be actually making it to the main roster. So it's like,
what got me back into it since like the late '80s. Like I always had a like kind of tertiary relationship with wrestling, because a couple of my friends back in Syracuse were really big fans of like all the super like territory era stuff.
That shit's cool.
Like
I watched a documentary on
I was
that.
I was on tour with my friend's band Black SS, and it was a specific stop that they made when they were in Atlanta to go to Abdullah the Butcher's his barbecue joint. We got to meet him, and the guy was a total sweetheart. It was awesome.
Shit.
Yeah.
See, is that fucked up?
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Stick quarters in it, you know.
Oh, it's so creepy.
It was awesome because it was like this pretty nice barbecue joint, and we were definitely the only Caucasians there. And my friends had stopped through there like numerous times. They're like, he's never here. He's never gonna be, you know. We're never gonna catch him. And finally, as we were leaving, he pulls up, and he must have seen like, you know, weird looking white dudes. He's like, well, it looks like I got some. He talks exactly like Bill Cosby. He's like, I got some fans. And like it was funny because he took pictures of all of us in a headlock. And my friend brought a wrapped fork and like tape for him to sign. And he took pictures of every single one of us in a headlock with the fork at our heads, except that the band that they were touring with was some like real nice kids, but they were these like 18-year-old like youth crew kids from Buffalo who didn't know anything about wrestling, who had no idea who this guy is. And Abdullah pretty much insisted. He's like, now you come over here. And it's like this little like, you know, like 135-pound skinny vegan kid. He's like, oh God, like this huge retired wrestler putting a fork in his head. It was awesome. But I started getting back into it because I thought CM Punk was really cool. And
he's the best.
I really liked Daniel Bryan. You know, it was like kind of like more the underdog kind of thing, and both those guys got screwed over so bad in my opinion.
Such a bummer.
You know, and it's just like, well, you know, what are you gonna do? And
did you listen to that Colt Cabana podcast with CM Punk?
Oh yeah,
dude. If what he's saying is true, with that doctor dude, having that MRSA,
that MRSA bubble in his back, like you know what I do.
Why would he lie about that? You know
I don't think he would.
Because I've heard, because up until recently, they really, now you see wrestlers, they get hurt every fucking episode. A wrestler's getting hurt, he's out for 6 months. That never happened when we were kids.
They just had to keep going.
90s, it just never happened.
That's why painkiller addiction was such a fucking deal,
and now all that shit, the wellness policy, all this shit, all of a sudden fucking CM Punk makes a big stink, then he goes to a doctor, and then they pop that shit. And he was talking about it hitting the ceiling and smelling all gnarly and shit, and being like, and the real doctor being like, how can anyone say that that's not, dude, that could have killed you? He shit his pants wrestling and shit.
Yeah, MRSA is terrifying.
I think that's just kind of the direction like that we're heading in, like as far as like sports entertainment.
far as like sports entertainment goes, like especially with like the NFL and everything. Everybody's like worried about concussions, and you know, they probably just had like more people like looking after like the WWE like way more closely.
Well, I mean, there's the whole Chris Benoit thing, which you know, I mean, I think
they did like a benefit show like right after he fucking murdered his family.
Yeah, I think there were. I mean, I certainly
way to go, Vince McMahon.
I certainly think in his case there are other factors involved, but the concussion thing had to come into play. Like all those jumping like off the top rope, like headbutt things that he did like every fucking night. That's gotta do something not good.
He had the brain. He had a brain of an 80-year-old with fucking serious dementia.
Because it was one of the guys from Tough Enough, the guy that was like went to Harvard or whatever, who like I think he did the Tough Enough thing, and I think
he wrestled for a little.
He was
while
a lower card guy for a while. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, and I just saw something about him. I was watching
but he heads up one of the centers for that research, like related to sports centers. Yeah, because he's a Harvard grad. Like, he's a smart dude,
and he was involved.
And he was involved in it.
So
yeah. I wish I could remember his name, but
I know I just saw him the other night.
My brain sucks. So
yeah, we talked about that last week. Oh no, we talked about that in the first episode.
But, the whole memory thing. It's scary. I'm like,
but
I've been on the fritz for the past decade. It's just not getting any better.
Well, it's part of me is like, oh well, maybe it's because I recently, like I mentioned to you guys, I was into the whole straight edge thing about a year or so out of living here up until maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was just like, like I think it's the right way to be, but like just for socializing and having a couple beers, and it got a little out of control for a while, and then I was now that I'm a dad, it's like I this is getting boring. I have no time to go to bars anyway. Sitting around your house and drinking beers all the time, you just feel like a loser. So whatever. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, has that affected my memory? I'm like, I'm sure it has to some extent, but I remember being a completely like stoned like straight edge kid that couldn't remember anything like before. I think my memory's always kind of sucked, and I like anybody else, I have a selective memory. It's like, oh yeah, it was the third pressing of that record, like I'll remember that, but I won't remember like somebody's name that I've hung out with like dozens of times or whatever. So.
I think some people have different strengths in their brain. Like we have different strengths, and the memory is just not one of them. Like a different part of the brain, like creativity or fucking whatever.
Yeah, for sure. So,
what are we doing with you're using the video camera, I see. Did you figure out how to is it still going to do the 32?
No, there's like no good information online. I think it does like 32 minutes at a time and fucking stops. And it starts again. We don't lose that much time from it though. We lose maybe like 10 seconds. So I don't think it's that big of a deal.
It's all right.
And then we got the fucking other camera to back us up anyway.
Cool.
I don't think we have any tech issues to worry about. I'm more concerned about the audio.
We touched upon this earlier. Not a fan of the Preacher series?
The show.
The show, yeah.
No.
Yeah, I was
up and down, up and down, up and down. Fucking shut this off.
I was guardedly optimistic. I don't know. Like, the thing is, I think if you're in my position, I've had a bunch of people that I've talked to about this that, like myself, read the whole run 5-10 years ago.
Oh, see, I was fresh into it.
There's no details for me to really remember. Speaking of memory again,
right?
So like get pissed off about. But still, it's kind of weird. Like there's something. I mean, even on its own, like with no knowledge of the comics whatsoever, there's something about the series that bugs me, and I don't know what it is.
The biggest thing to me is that Preacher, right from the very beginning, it starts off in Texas, and they hit the fucking road.
Right.
They just spent the whole season in a small town in Texas, and it's a town. They're like mixing together the town he's from and a town he ends up in halfway through, and they mix them together. It's just all this shit kind of clobbed together. The tulip thing pisses me off, and I made a post on Facebook about this. And it's not a race thing. Anyone who knows me knows that has nothing to fucking do with it. But the fact that Tulip is a 90s big-breasted blonde girl in the comic, and she's like a skinny, dark-skinned, curly-haired black girl in the show, I mean, it has nothing to do with her appearance. It's just the fact that she's they changed her character to look with what she looks like, meaning the people that put it together perceive. Why couldn't she be a black girl with the same exact characteristics as a white girle? And things we're still humans.
And
they
also,
can be exactly the same.
Isn't her character like personality wise significantly different?
It's
besides,
just way fucking over the top. Like the first episode, didn't she make a bazooka out of like tomato fucking soup?
Oh
cans
yeah,
or
that's
something?
right.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. I'm just bummed because there's no way for Bill Hicks to be in this.
I know that
like
pisses. Well, they definitely would, and there's no way they'll even touch on about it because you can tell because they're purposely making it current day.
Yeah.
And the whole thing that happened with the Bill Hicks thing was that he died during the making of Preacher.
Right.
They make him up and then they talk about him dying and like they talk about him.
Maybe they can get like Doug Stanhope or something. I don't know.
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr. Yeah.
Instead of Bill Hicks.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I took it for what it is. I definitely watch a lot of TV.
The Cassidy, I thought they did pretty good.
That's the thing. Thomas Gilgun. He was in the This Is England series. He was in that.
He was? Who was he in this?
He
was in the series. I haven't seen the series.
Oh, he was in the movie too. He was Woody, who was like the good guy skinhead, like the super funny, like, you know.
Oh yeah.
And he was in.
Holy shit! Wow.
He was in that show Misfits, which is like it's like a superhero show, sorta.
Is it good? That's a comic, right? Too.
Yeah, I believe it's a comic. I've never read the comic.
I think what's his name wrote it. Garth Ennis. I want to.
Oh really?
I know he did Invincibles. Or Invincible.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It would make sense that it's a comic. It's
Did you know that the other dude, who's the drawer? Is Garth Ennis in the drawer? Is Steve Dillon? He just died a couple months ago.
Yeah. Yep. I know about that. Didn't he do? Did he do Judge Dredd too, or am I?
He did. Yeah. He did a couple of Judge Dredds. I think I have Judge Dredd versus Predator somewhere. It's not down here.
That's a series I really need to dig into, like the 2000 AD Judge Dredd stuff. I started with like
fucking wild.
It's crazy, but the early ones are kind of dry and hard to get through. They're very like you know, before things really start to pop off, you know. And I downloaded some of those and read some of them, and I was like, I know this is awesome. I mean, Anthrax has a song about it. Like, it's got to be good. Well, when they were still a good band. But like, it just, and I know it's classic stuff. And the Dredd movie, not the Sylvester Stallone one,
the new one, Dredd. Right?
Yeah,
I thought that was really good.
I thought it was fantastic.
And don't get me wrong, I love Sly because I love Rocky and Rambo and shit. But
yeah, no, that's, you know, not Fred Schneider. That's the guy from the B-52s. Rob Schneider, Rob Schneider and Stallone. You know,
yeah.
I actually
the '90s was a weird fucking time.
I actually rewatched all the Rockies are all up on Hulu, and I had a marathon.
Creed's even up there.
Yeah, I had a marathon of watching 1 through 5. Oh man,
dude, I like the newest one, man.
5 was a rough ride.
Yeah, bad. And that's why he made the sixth one, Rocky Balboa. I thought that was great. For what they had to work, dude, watch it.
Yeah, I know. I think that's is that up
right
on
up
there
there with the. I don't know if that one's up there, but it's right up there with the first 2 movies.
Yeah,
it's
I know that's
good.
I know that's really good.
It's like it's like depressing. They play off your emotions. Like, and what's her name? What's his wife's name? Adrian. Adrian's dead, and like you can tell it's like wearing on his face and body and shit. And he just like he's got like no, you know. Feels like he's got no direction in life. The only thing he knows is like, you know, he used to be a leg breaker for the fucking mob in the first movie. You know, went from there to like boxing and then getting all big, and now his kid kind of doesn't want anything to do with him. Kind of casts too big of a shadow on him. He's trying to go off in the corporate world. His wife's dead, who was his whole life. So he opens up a restaurant. He has his wife's restaurant, and you know, he's like cool. He comes around to the tables and like tells old boxing stories. And it seems like a cool precedent for a restaurant, especially an Italian restaurant, you know, to have your local Italian hero.
Sure.
Because there was a lot of old immigrant boxing fucking heroes back in the day. That was like one of their things. Actually, a lot of waves of immigrants got into boxing. Because they were poor. It's a good way to make money, fighting with your fucking hands, you know. But I don't know, I thought it was a good precedent for a movie. And then you're like, how are they possibly going to get this old guy in the ring? It doesn't make any sense. And they did one of those things, like those computer animated things, where they put up like the best champions against each other of all time. And one of the ones they did was the guy who was the current champion versus Rocky Balboa when he was in his prime. And they did like a computer animation. And I want to say Rocky wins. And it like pisses the guy off, the guy who's the current champion. And then they reach out to Rocky's people and they're like, "How are you? Are you in shape? Like, you think you could like just have like a sparring match, literally, like the first one was supposed to be a glorified." It was supposed to be a glorified sparring match, the first one. And Rocky's like, fuck that. I'm going to go make a name for myself. I'm going to make this guy. I'm going to go the distance with him. I'm going to be the only one to do it. No one's done it yet. That's what the whole premise of the first movie is about. So this movie comes full circle around, and it basically ends up being the same thing. He's pissed off the boxer, the fucking champ, because Rocky won in this fucking imaginary fantasy warfare thing. And then Rocky goes, well, fuck you. I'm still Rocky, dude. You're not going to fuck what? You're going to try to make an ass of me on TV? Yeah. So they don't show him. He's always wearing these big, heavy sweatshirts and shit. And when they do the Rocky montage, which they always got to do with the working out.
Oh,
like,
of course.
There's this clip where he's like...
With the logs and 4.
Yeah, so yeah, it's great.
It's my favorite shit.
They do this whole thing as trainer, the not Apollo, because Apollo's dead, but Apollo's guy, the other black dude there. He's like...
in 4 and 5. Too.
Yep. The bald dude. He's like, you know, you can't like do something because your shoulders are all torn and burnt out, and you can't run because your knees are gone, and you can't do this because your back, and like all this shit. He's like, so the only thing you got, blunt force trauma, and he just lifts like, you know, concrete, and he's just constantly pounding the heavy bag. If they don't show him, he's always in this big sweatshirt. So when he finally comes out to the ring, and Sylvester Stallone's fucking mad ups to him, when he finally takes his robe off, dude is fucking jacked, dude. It's like, I don't know how a 6-year-old guy can look like that. Like you have to be made of rocks. And of course, they have the champion come in who clearly thinks he's fighting some old, washed-up guy. And they made Antonio Tavas, the guy who plays the character in the movie, and they like made him get a little out of shape. You could tell his belly wasn't. It was like a little soft.
Gone a little soft,
like,
sure.
Yeah, you know, like he obviously wasn't training. Whereas Rocky's been training real hard, wanting like just go the distance. And Rocky at the end, sorry, we'll get off Rocky in a second, but Rocky ends up leaving the ring before they even denounce the winner. He knows he lost. He doesn't even care. He just walks away with his arms up, like walk. It's just a fucking sweet movie. They do it perfect.
That's good, because I watched that 5 and I was like, dude,
I can't even do it. I've seen it once. I've never watched it.
I mean, 4 has its merits because it's like a bit of Cold War nostalgia.
And
you know,
it's an 80s movie.
You got Lundgren up in there being all Lundgren-y, which is cool.
1980s.
But like, man, 5 is like...
Which one was fine? That was like the 90s one with his son being a teenager.
Yeah,
getting into fighting.
When he goes back to Philly because he misappropriates all of his money, like he just loses it all. It's a very flimsy plot device. And then he's training this young guy named Tommy Gunn. Not to be confused with a wrestler.
Or Stallone's first character in fucking Death Race 2000.
Oh yeah, that's right. Death Race 2000 is so good.
Oh, that's dirty. They would do that.
Yeah, but that whole thing was there's a fight in the street at the end where they're like flying across into cars and shit. It's oh man, yeah. So yeah, I'll have to get back to the other two when I have a chance. Probably the next.
Have you seen Creed?
I haven't seen Creed yet. I am very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's on Hulu too now, so I'm definitely gonna be watching that.
Yeah, I heard it's a really, really good flick. So
anyway, you got D&D later, huh?
Yep. Then
what's up with that?
It's cool because you know we're all amateurs, like we're all people that played in high school or whatever and wanted to pick it up again. My next door neighbor John, who's a good buddy of mine from upstate that also ended up here. Him and his wife live one house over from me in Salem. And we're like, we'll get it together. And it's cool because it's all people. We spend half of the session dicking around and talking about music because everybody's into metal and punk and stuff.
What we usually do. You wouldn't have set up for another couple hours probably.
Yeah. And it's a good time. Like I have 2 different characters. We played 2 different campaigns. I have a wizard named BEATBAG that I based his character on David Lee Roth and Ric Flair. So that's pretty great. Like he's got like sequined robes and shit. And then the other one I think I'm playing.
Did you draw them or anything?
Nah.
Yeah, it's just like people got to visualize it.
What's neat though is that the people that we play with, 2 of them, Paul and Paris, got a hold of like a place that makes through 3D printing like the exact characters that you want.
Customizable miniatures?
Yeah, so I have not for BizBaz, but for my other character, he's a half orc monk. Like, you know, they have my little guy and he's got his robes and he's like in a karate stance and shit. It's really
awesome.
It's really, really rad. And it's nice because Griffin, my son, is an awesome kid. And the last time, because Amanda hasn't had my my fiance, excuse me, hasn't been able to play in a while, you know, because I'm like, I'll watch the kid if you want to go play D&D instead of me. And she's like, no. And we finally brought him over to try it out, and it worked out great. He was, you know, super, chill and didn't freak out or cry. We just fed him when he needed to, and he fell asleep, and we just played D&D. So
that's fucking beautiful.
So that was rad, and of course I made the joke. I'm like, you're never ever gonna meet girls. I'm sorry, we're starting off on the wrong foot. But yeah, it's cool. Like we get together at least a couple of times a month, and
that's awesome.
It's all like metal and punk.
How many people
fans who play? That's another thing is that it shifts a lot because not everybody can do it all at the same time.
Right.
I think. The last time we played when Griffin was there, all of us were there, and it was like I think it's six people total, 7 people total. So yeah, and it's a big upstate New York bond too because my friend Eric is actually from New Hampshire but went to SU and lived in Syracuse for a long time. Paul lived there for a while, so we always end up being like, oh yeah, that one pizza place on Westcott Street, blah 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 blah. Remember, da da da. So that's a nice thing too. Is I love Boston and I love Boston people, but like there's something about my fellow upstate New Yorkers. It's comfortable to have them around.
I think that's would be true just about
Syracuse
anybody.
townies.
Got to be true with just about anybody. I mean,
yeah.
Unless you literally were tormented by absolutely everybody from where you came from, which definitely I'm sure. Yeah, if you're from Worcester.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring up. Only because I don't know if what we're ever gonna do with that other episode that we did. Yeah.
I'll make it. I'm just gonna. Last week has just been super fucking busy.
I know, dude. I was sick all week. Trust me, I hear you. And I don't have any fucking. I know you're a busy guy. I don't fucking expect you to be pumping them out. But I just don't know if we're gonna do anything with it. But if we don't do anything with it for some reason, like before this one comes out or whatever.
You want to put this one first?
We could. But what I'm saying is something got brought up in the other one at the end. And I wanted to fucking ask you about it, and we ran out of time. But you had mentioned doing this like Ghostbusters, the trivia thing, and you said it was like a fucking I don't know. You said there was kind of a little bit of a controversial win, I guess. How does that go?
So we're playing the game, right? My aunt made up a Ghostbusters trivia game. She basically watched the movie and came up with a bunch of questions. And I was expecting them to be like really like hard fucking questions. So I watched the movie myself, took a bunch of notes and shit. But
nice.
That's where like I came up with like all the fucking Harold Ramis quotes. They're fucking hilarious.
You at this point in your life already taking notes on Ghostbusters, I can only imagine the head you went in.
But my cousin, dude, so and the reason why I did this is because my cousin, John, is also a huge fucking Ghostbusters fan, like as bad as we are. So like I knew like, they were going to make the two of us captains. So I had to fucking prepare. But the questions, they were a little on the easy side. Some of them were kind of hard. There were a few like I didn't get, like, what was like Dana Barrett's apartment number and shit, like stuff like Jesus. I forgot to fucking write, like the name of the hotel, which actually we did end up getting. But one of the ones that he got as a question was, how many times does Lewis get locked out of his apartment? Okay. And the question was to my cousin. My cousin answered 3. And so she said that's wrong. And I'm like, holy fuck, like 2? And so I got it right. It was actually 3. So we actually went back and watched it, and like there's like, but like I think we end up like getting in on like a technicality because like they don't really make a big deal out of like one of the times they does it. They just show them like really quick and.
Okay.
But anyway,
it doesn't seem to.
I won by a point. So like had he gotten that point, he would have won by a point. Yeah, he would have won by a point.
Wow, that's bullshit. How'd that make you feel? You must have been kind of pissed.
Whatever. I'll take the win. I mean, a win's a win.
Yeah, right.
No, and honestly, like my cousin's a fucking like diehard competitive person, so he would have taken that too. Like, I don't know. I mean, if it were anybody else, I probably would have felt kind of bad. But because it was him, I'm like, no, fuck it. No, I'll totally take that win. But yeah, that's the Ghostbusters trivia story.
Good. That's awesome. I just wanted to know because I have had written down Ghostbusters challenge. Why? Tell me for some reason why I can write like this, but when I'm writing for the show, it always looks like this. This is like a fucking sloppy mess. I don't know why.
You need a secretary, dude.
I don't even know where I am in this fucking thing.
Just gotta get the thoughts out, man. Like fuck penmanship.
You need Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. See, look at this. Look at this shit. That was all.
That was a good flick. That was a good movie.
What?
I haven't seen that in years. Secretary.
Oh my God, it's coming up again. Oh,
is this
man.
a common?
Well, we're on up, I think.
He brought it up and was talking about how awesome it was and sexy, and I was like, I don't know, man. That movie made me kind of fucking. Well, you implied it, and it made me kind of. That movie made me kind of uncomfortable. And it is sexy, but it made me uncomfortable because, like I said, I watched it with like 20 other people in a punk house.
Yeah.
So it was like, ugh. If I even find this sexy, it's gonna be. It's like, it make me feel bad enough about myself as it is, but doing it in front of other people, especially punk kind of people, who are probably like, how dare they make a movie like this?
I don't care
What's wrong with being sexy?
I don't care who's in the room. Every time you fucking mention being like disorganized, I'm gonna mention fucking Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Awesome. Dude, don't get me wrong. I'd be all over that. That didn't sound right, but back in the day.
What's the name of the guy? Is it James Spader? Or am I? That dude looks like dog shit these days. That movie wasn't that long ago. He's like, was it Boston Legal? And like, I can't remember the other shit that he's great though. I can't remember his name. But like that dude aged about like 40 years and 15.
It's weird how that happens to some people.
Yeah.
Whatever happened with class action? I know you guys probably broke up around like what 2000, 2001 something.
2001. Yeah, like I mean, I'm not sure. Like a lot of it, I actually was thinking about it because I figured that it probably would be brought up as a topic of conversation, and I'm thinking back. I know that like the thing is everybody graduated high school except for me because I was 21. All those dudes were like 17, 18, and everybody kind of went their own separate ways. I know that I was planning on leaving Boston because I just had enough with living here for a while. Gipper went away to school in New York. Alex started going to school at Emerson. Ross just kept doing his thing. Rufio, was kind of a hired gun, but like turned out to be more of a permanent band member towards the end. But he always had he's a phenomenal bass player. He ended up playing in Clip 45, all these different.
Yeah, he's a hired gun for everything.
Yeah, every street punk band.
I want to get
there
him
is.
on here too.
Oh yeah, great guy. I'm sure he'd be
really
an excellent
is.
guest.
And he is also huge into Star Wars. So
but really, I feel like Ross and Alex were they're young and they're constantly evolving in what they wanted to do. And I feel like, they'd been doing class action since they were like a crappy pogo punk band, like based out of Burlington and Lexington or whatever, like 4 or 5 years prior. And I think they just wanted to do something new. Considering Gipper was going away to school and I was leaving, it just kind of dissolved, and it was great. Like that was like easily the most popular band that I'd been in. Not that we were like the biggest shit ever, but we played a lot with like Toxic and the Unseen and
that's the thing I wanted to come up because I was when I was in Water Blast at the time, and like
I remember
it's
that.
not like
we
were
shows together.
Yeah, a lot of shows together, and like a lot together. We were like forced to be intertwined, and to me at that time, I'd never been in a more popular band either. Like it also a lot has to do with what the scene was in that day because there was a lot of fucking people, man, going crazy, and it was just like awesome.
1,000 kids.
So to be able to talk to someone who was going through basically the exact same thing, the same kind of level of popularity, never reaching that level of popularity again in the exact same time period with the exact same people.
It was a time and place kind of thing where a lot of kids were getting into like metallic, grindy, crust, power violence, like whatever type of shit we were playing. We were an interesting blend, I think. And a lot of kids went nuts for us, which was really cool. It was also a weird, like, I have to come out of my shell kind of thing for me because, I mean, I'd been in bands back in Syracuse and I'd played to people, but not like my parents came to one of the Brighton Elks shows where it was like 500 kids there, which isn't really, I mean, it's not like a Rock in Rio with Iron Maiden or anything, but it's the most people I've ever played in front of.
No, but when you're doing that and every show you're playing is squeezing in 500 kids for that time period, it was a good feeling. Man.
And sometimes like the attention was not always what I wanted because there were a lot of people coming up to me being like, oh yeah, hey, and I'm just like, there's a lot of people talking to me just because I'm in a band, and that's kind of weird, like I can't even imagine like what celebrities, like legit celebrities, like how they handled like that, because that wasn't even really fame per se, but it was definitely more attention than I was used to, and it was kind of strange to me.
You're also the singer too, so you're the person like everybody remembers.
Yeah, and like it was interesting because I come from like where I cut my teeth the first like 4 or 5 years I went to DIY shows. They were all like bands like Unbroken and Bloodlet and Damnation AD and this proto metalcore tough guy-ish Earth Crisis, that kind of stuff. And I kind of brought that sort of vibe to Class Action in a way with like how not even consciously, but it just kind of came through like when I was up front, like holding the mic a certain way, and like, you know, I'm not a tough dude. Like, I don't know, you know, I've never really been a brawler or anything like that, but I loved stuff like Madball. I still do, you know, and like a little bit of that bled through. And it was funny because you'd see these kids completely decked out, you know, with like mohawks and bondage pants and shit, like spin kicking and stuff after a while.
Yeah, they were, dude. They were hardcore dancing back then, dude.
And then, like, I mean, I definitely did that goofily enough, which is, you know, kind of, you know, I wouldn't say yeah, it's embarrassing. Let's just cut to the chase. But yeah, like toxic shows and stuff, everybody's like floor punching and shit, but it's all like punk kids. It's kind of funny, you know? So I feel like it was like maybe bringing something a little different, you know, to something that had been like set a certain way in Boston. But yeah, it was certainly an odd time for me. It was like I came here a year after the Rat closed. I never experienced it, you know, and after it closed, it seemed like there was this vacuum of like, okay, we need to have shows in all these other places. And I think kids were used to like the lawlessness of the Rat, or so it seems. Like I said, I've never been there, but it was just underage kids getting places shut down, like venue to venue all the time, and like all this crazy shit.
Yeah, because my best friend at the time, Justin, was big into setting the shows.
Yeah.
So like him just trying to find a place was like part of most of the reason he would be tearing his hair out.
Yeah.
That same reason.
I mean, and it made me mad because I mean, like I was just at the time I partied and everything, and I was just into getting fucked up and having a good time as anybody else. But I was like, can you just be a little bit more on the DL about it? Like what, you know? Because I mean, the city I came from has had one community center that doesn't do shows as often now, but has had the same place that for DIY shows since 1995, and there's been close to like maybe 3 problems there, like in that time period.
Holy fuck.
One of them, then this is a funny story. One of them, it was like a bunch of hardcore bands, this band Trapped Under Ice and this band Naysayer, and all these kids are, you know, doing their thing and, you know, beating the shit out of each other. Somebody went through a wall. One of the guys that helped book the show from the label that those bands is on called like a contractor buddy of his. They were there, patched the wall, painted it, and it was fixed by the end of the show.
That's fucking rad.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, you ain't getting
so,
that.
Yeah, you know, like that's the type of town I come from where people really respect the space. And I think another time, I think it was like in the heyday of like Municipal Waste being like a big underground band and not like,
being made fun of anymore.
Right.
You know,
like they played with Annihilation Time, and a bunch of people came out of the woodwork and like
that's some fire show right there.
Yeah,
that time period.
They broke a ceiling fan, but everything was okay. Like, you know, people.
Wait, they played at that same place you're talking about?
Yeah.
What?
There was like boot scuffs on the ceiling and shit. Like people wild out like crazy.
Yeah,
and like that was a little bit of a problem, but you know the damages were taken care of and fixed and whatever. You know, it didn't happen again.
Wow.
You
can't say anything wrong about that.
Yeah,
that's pretty solid.
So yeah, it's definitely like it was a completely different vibe here, where it was like kids almost were like, I want to, you know, I listened to this nihilistic music and I want to be the kid drunk in front of the show, drinking a beer, not giving a fuck. Right. And it's like, well, you know, you're 16, like you don't know any better, you know, but at that time, even at age 21, I was like a moralistic, like condescending, grumpy old man. I was like, this is wrong, support your scene, you know. I was constantly pissed off by the way people were acting and not just being like, well, this is kids will be kids kind of thing. And then there were dudes older than me that were, you know.
I was a wild fucking maniac, but I, like you said, tried to do it on the DL at least.
Yeah. It's not like I didn't like sneak beer in, you know, in like you know, big gulp cups or whatever.
But that's what being fucking DL is.
Yeah.
That's not flaunting. Shows that got shut down, like you said, in a fucking domino. It's like fucking termites went in the goddamn fucking building.
Yeah.
Like what's left? Like I don't know if you ever went to that Future Nightmare house that Ross was living in.
I think so.
If you've been back for 10 years, I think you lived there within 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
like you got a house
I've
in
definitely
Dorchester
been there. Yep.
With Sue and stuff, and then like you know, a different generation of punk kids moved in, and then, you know, kept altering out. When they got that place, it was fucking unreal. Obviously, she decorated with all her cool shit, her taxidermy and all that
crazy
stuff.
knickknacks and shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then within 5 years, the place should have been condemned. And by the time they finally did, by the time someone who had the power to do that finally walked through the door for the first time, it had been 10 years, not 5. And it got condemned.
Well, yeah,
day.
I mean, look, I remember Baby Safe Haven in Somerville.
Dude,
Oh,
had
my
that,
God.
That hole.
There's
into
a trash hole.
trash hole.
There's literal trash hole.
Like Baby Safe Haven couldn't be a fucking better name for the fucking place.
And that was
too.
the thing was like when I first moved here, it was almost like my attitude was like it was before, but more extreme because I was a teetotaler, you know, I didn't drink or anything. And I came back from upstate New York where everything was really posy with my friends' bands and stuff, and came back to the same like filth and like insanity. And I was playing in that band Mechanable with Mike Reed, and we played metal shows. We played, you know, whatever. We played like bike messenger races. We played basements. We played anything we could. And I just remember it just being like, man, I hate this. I fucking hate this, you know. And like, I don't know. I mean, I think now I've kind of evened out between all of it, and I'm just kind of like, I'm old, whatever. It's fine, you know, it's cool. But like,
I ain't sleeping here.
You know, exactly. But I remember that Future Nightmare house. I was like, I like the people that live here. You know, or not Future Nightmare, Baby Safe Haven. But then you also had like, what was that other place in Somerville? It was a couple blocks away.
Bloodstains.
I've been to Bloodstains.
State House.
Nope.
Thunderdome.
The Paternal Friendship Overnight Sleepover House.
Oh, the Platonic Sleepover.
Platonic Sleepover,
Yeah.
Like that place had shows, and they were like really clean. And,
Yeah,
like, had
they
it all
were
together,
like,
and,
it's weird because they were like our people, but yeah, clean.
they were a little bit more mature,
more,
I guess, or whatever.
I say anal, you say mature.
Yeah.
You know? There's like a mix of the two, I would say.
Yeah.
I think mature would probably be more realistic, but me being one of the dirty people,
Yeah.
mature as anal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was always a thing too in Boston. And again, I'm sure there are punk houses still, but like the Danger House was the one that I lived at, like on the couch for a few months before I got that place with Krusty Craig. And
Yeah,
that place,
I did the State House. It was
Holy
that was like probably the next year or two later.
Yeah, because the State House was after I moved to Maine. I remember I hadn't been to Boston in a long time. Like it'd been almost not a year, but maybe 6 or 7 months. I just didn't have the money, and you know, I needed to get away from civilization. I think I came down to visit after a show, and I remember hanging out at the State House and meeting everybody, you know, and then that awful thing happened with those fucking future
Nazis,
Trump supporters.
Yeah. Holy fuck.
Yeah, and I heard about that when I was living in Maine. I mean, I read about it on the Bridge 9 board of all places, and like, yeah, and my friend Ditch, who's this dude from he lived up in Lowell. He lives in California now. Was like, do you know these kids? Because he was just this like, he was like kind of a posy hardcore dude that like went to punk shows and stuff. And he was like, yeah, do you know? I was like, yeah, I've hung out there a couple of times. What happened? Like, holy shit, are you serious? I didn't even know those guys were around anymore. Holy fuck.
Do you know how it's?
Yeah.
Do you know how that started though?
Wasn't it a Fight and Exploited show?
And a Fight and Exploited show, yeah. Some dude fucking, it's crazy. It's like I'm so connected but disconnected from both of the incidences. So by such a hair. Like I was at the Exploited show. I went to the bar with all the kids that were involved with it.
Yeah.
And I jumped out. I was falling over him and falling out of the bar, so that kid's got to go drunk.
Yeah.
So someone had to drive me all the way back to Boston. It was in Rhode Island. And
Right.
literally within
Providence,
minutes.
right?
Yeah, it was in Providence. So literally within minutes, the dude, I guess, came walking down spewing some fucking hate shit, and he just got dropped and jumped and I guess he got stomped pretty bad. Like
Yeah.
his face got turned into hamburger. At the time, Rick had that fucking mass chaos fucking. It was like a picture. It was like a picture sharing site that he develops because you know Rick, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
He's like a fucking whiz on the computer. It's like unreal. And he put together, he formatted this whole thing where like punks all across the country could like post photos and shit. And it's kind of like Facebook, but like before its time. But it was completely privatized to decked punks, you know. And people would post a picture, and then other people could like comment on it and like it and stuff and weird shit like that. And that's actually, like I was saying, like I got out of it for a little while, and then someone had posted some old pictures of me on there, And I was like, who the fuck would post pictures? Like, who has my pictures? And they're like, they better not be trying to pass these pictures off as them, just because I look good like these other dudes. And then like I saw like how many people were liking the pictures and stuff, and I'm like, damn, I'm doing the wrong thing in my life. This is pretty fucking flattering, dude.
There you go.
I might grow out a giant fucking bleach charge right now. But I wanted to tell you before we stop. You were saying, what were you saying about like where you were when you went to see Abdullah Butch's thing, right? Yeah. And you guys were the only white folks in there.
Yeah.
That's a similar story to me happened where when we went and played that show at CBGB's, fucking, and it like the night disintegrated. I ended up, yeah, and especially when we go to
so many fucking billing shows.
Especially when me and you were in New York City. So we all went our own ways. I ended up with like fucking Bubba Cardinelli and fucking Ryan Hurley and Diana. And I don't know if you know, but I don't know if you remember, but I like went out of my way and took the time to do my hair. I had Liberty spikes and shit at the time. So I had like fucking huge, perfect Liberty spikes. I had like a big studded vest. I was perfectly decked for that time, for the time period that I wanted to look perfect like everyone else. But I was also getting older, so I was already starting to wear like eyeliner and shit. And like I had been up all night, so it was like smeared all over my face. My nails were painted, so I kind of had like
Mike Ness in Another State of Mind style.
Yeah, like, gotta make it look like you cried. So I was like that's what I look like, right? And my buddies are like, we stayed in Queens, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go get soul food in Harlem. And I'm like, all right. But I didn't know much about Harlem and like whatever. I've only, every time I go to New York, I'm going to Brooklyn because I have a ton of friends down there.
Yeah, sure.
So they take me to fucking Harlem on a Sunday, dude. And I am, like I said, I'm fucking decked, and I'm with 3 white rapper dudes and my punk girlfriend, and they take me to this fucking soul food place in Harlem, dude, and talk about being somewhere. It was all black. All the from each side of the street, there was a fucking gigantic black biker gang, which usually when you think biker gang, you think like fucking old Vietnam vets and all that stuff. So, but these dudes are driving like sports bikes, and they got like these flashy helmets, and they looked badass as fuck. Like you definitely don't want to fuck with them if shit went down. I mean, you don't want to fight with a real motorcycle club anyway. But there was like fucking 60 of them all lined along the way while we were looking for parking. And we fucking go. We walk into this soul food place. And I'm the first one through the door. They did it on purpose. They set me up so that I was the first one to walk through the door. And I walk in on a Sunday, and everybody in there, dude, there's a gospel band playing. Everybody in there is in their finest church garbs. All the women have the big hats and shit. Not any white people, obviously. It's a fucking soul food place in Harlem an hour after church got out, dude. And
Perfect.
It was like fucking like the record scratched when I walk in there, like the record scratch. I think the soul food band, the gospel band just like hit and stopped, and like everybody in the place looked up, and I come walking in, and I'm like, and I'm thinking in my head, and 3 white rappers are gonna come walking in behind me. I'm like, fuck, and it was so awkward. And then we ate, and it was like the best food ever, and then we left. We had no problems. It was awesome. I mean, everybody was obviously super friendly and shit, and it was awesome. But then when we left, as we're starting to leave, it's starting to rain a little bit, and then we run into this group of younger kids and I can see them down the street, and there's about 20 of them, and they're like being kind of wild. You know, they're younger, like 18, 19, 17 maybe, and they're fucking jumping around and using their arms a lot to talk. And then they see us, me in particular, like, look at this guy and on our turf, you know what I mean? And it's starting to rain a little bit, and one of the young kids walks up to me, and he's jumping, and he's fucking like, he's like, like doing all that shit in my face. And I'm like, dude, I'm the wrong person to fuck with. Like, I was like, your 20 people might go down, this whole city might take us down, but like, y'all probably gonna die in the process. So stop, please. And then he gets real close to my face, and he's like, would y'all come to see the gorillas in the motherfucking mist? Because it was raining out. And I was like, how dare you, sir? Who do you think I am?
I said good day.
I walked over like fucking Bill Murray and Rushmore and just swapped the basketball out of some little kid's hands and was trying to shoot it.
But
like, holy shit, man.
well, I'm glad you lived to tell the tale.
No, it was fine. Like, because really he did it, and I literally just started fucking cracking up laughing because I'm a huge old school Ice Cube fan, and he has a song called "Gorillas in the Mist."
Yeah. Well, it's a movie too. Yeah,
it's a movie too. But the "Gorillas in the Mist," the Ice Cube song is it's with the lynch mob actually.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it's fucking it's me and my buddy Ian. We used to fucking love it. We were like two kids like all into like hip hop. I've always been into it and shit. And so like I kind of was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like I kind of cry and laugh. What's so funny? I'm like, dude, I love the lynch mob and shit. And it like totally
nice.
just squashed
Yeah.
right there.
Swinging on the vine, sucking on a piece of swine. Jigaboo come up from behind, hit him with a coconut, stab him in the gut. Push him out the tree, he falls right on his butt. And just like EPMD, I don't like a trick named J to the A to the N-E. Can't wait to meet her, I'm gonna kill her, cause that little mutt named Cheetah can't hang with a gorilla. Voodoo, running for my magic. Gorillas in the mist. Voodoo, running for my magic.
There was this kid Travis rolling around for a while, and I don't think you were here, but he was a fucking tank of a dude. And me and him had a couple going at it. And at that time, I was fucking fighting everybody.
Was he friends with like Little Ian, who was like a punk and then a
think
skin
so.
and all that?
Yeah.
Because there was some dude, he was like I think he was a New Hampshire guy and was hanging out down here with him, and he was ex-military.
Yeah,
and he
then
was
they
built like.
He made him leave and shit because
Oh,
he
Jesus.
hadn't lost a fight in all of Boston. And it went into this whole thing. I don't know how much of this we should put on the camera. Well, I got somebody.
We can always edit, you know.
But I guess he was getting this reputation for himself. I mean, if he can fucking go up against me and not even leave with a mark, dude, and like then go, he went up against Brendan, who was a big buddy of mine from Dorchester, who can throw down, one of Ryan's good buddies. Went up against me, and I think went up against Ryan's brother, all in the same night, and didn't leave with a fucking mark. And then so I'll tell the story of this night anyway. So that's what happened. A big fight broke out while my band was playing Chainsaw Disasters. Him and Brendan got in the fight. That went outside. It got calmed off. Then I found out that one of his little cronies pulled a knife on one of my punk friends. Mm-hmm. So I went up to the dude, and they were all laughing, and they were looking at the knife. I was like, oh, shit, I don't even have to ask them. They're like just showing me right there. Because I don't like to beat people down. If I'm going to give them a real beating, it better be for a reason. I'm not a fucking animal, you know? Sure. I just can do animalistic things. So I'm like, and I see them with the knife, and they're laughing, and they're all, so I just walked up, and I grabbed him by the head, and I smashed his head off the fucking windowsill that was hanging off the house. Like his eye went right into it. I was like, oh no, like that just set this off. And like, he went down like a heap, just blood was everywhere. And then 10 people jumped on me, fucking bricks. No, that happened and everyone fucking backed off and everyone was scared. But then that died off a bit. And he left all fucking mangled in an ambulance and shit. And then everything was kind of starting to calm down. And then I hear that kid Travis that I was talking about, the big fucking tank of a dude, when he was fighting my fucking friend Brendan, I guess he had accidentally hit my girlfriend in the face. And everybody was laying on me about it. Dude, you're not gonna do nothing about it? Like, dude, how can you not do anything about it? And my girlfriend's was like knocked out for a little while, like literally like unconscious. Yeah. So I'm like, well, it's me, and that's my girlfriend. I cannot leave here. I have to fucking do something. I have to, like, especially at that time period in my life. Like, I will never live this down if I don't. And I knew his reputation, and I knew my reputation. So I'm like, all right, so whatever. So I picked up this fucking chunk of concrete. It was like a broken corner of a fucking cinder block. And I walk up to him, and he's like, what? And I'm like, did you fucking punch my girlfriend in the face? He's like, not on purpose, but yeah. So I cracked him with a rock, this fucking chunk of concrete. Dude, he took one step backwards again, and he was just like, kind of shaking it off. I mean, you can tell it rung his bell, but he didn't even barely move. Like one step back and was like shaking it off. I was like, fuck, it's my only chance. So I hit him with it again, dude. And he took just another step back, shakes it off like this, and he's like, did you just hit me with a fucking rock? And I was like, I had it in my hand, and I just let it go. And I was like, nah. And I started walking away. As soon as my back turned, someone fucking threw a brick, and the things cracked me right in the back of the fucking head. And I was like, fuck! And then, like, the corner hit me. I could already feel, like, the skull crack, and, like, I could feel the warm, like, more than blood. It was like kind of gory. It was like thick and syrupy, and it was already coming down so bad here, coming over my face. It was like coming out really bad, and then I felt another smash, and it was someone hit me with a chain. Then like 3 different people threw bottles off my head, and then I hit the ground, and someone hit me with another brick in the back of the head. Oh, someone hit me with another brick in the back of the head, and then I was on the ground, and I was laying on the ground, my face mushed into the dirt, shit face. I couldn't really. At this point, it was like, yeah, I might have stood a chance if I was standing the whole time or saw it coming or something. I probably wouldn't have even then. But now my nose is literally 2 inches into the dirt, and I'm being squished into the ground. And I remember telling myself, well, you fucking hate life anyway. You finally got what you want. Like, this is your way out. You get to die in the street like you wanted to, you know? And then all of a sudden, I pull my face up out of the dirt, and I'm like, wait. Why do I have the time to pull my face up out of the dirt? And I push myself up like this. And I'm like, how come I have time to push myself? And I just hear boom. And I look over, and a body hits the ground next to me. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I hear boom, and another body hits the ground next to me. And I'm like, what the fuck up? And I finally start pushing myself up. And Ryan just got there. He just got out of jail that night. He had been locked up for like 9 months, and he heard about the party. Yeah. Just shows up while I'm getting fucking killed. And he's like one of my best friends in the world. And I look up, and the bodies are dropping, and he's just screaming at the top of his lungs, I'm sober, motherfucker! Because, you know him, he's a fucking crazy drunk. So, like, for him to be able to fight sober in a situation like that against a bunch of drunk kids, he's going to do even more damage because he doesn't have the fucking booze fucking him. But he, like, completely saved my life. Like, I literally was laying on the ground like, they're going to kill me. And then the next thing I know, bodies were just dropping around my body. It was just so fucked.
It's funny, like, well, it's gonna be bleeped out, I guess, but I got in this conversation with Jared Marble outside of.
Oh no, we don't bleep his name out.
All right. No,
he's one exception.
No, I mean, I never really knew the kid before, but we got to hanging out at O'Brien's last year and just shooting the shit, drinking beers and stuff. And he was on this, I don't know, weird to me, normal to him, I'm sure, but a very spiritual trip where he's talking about like astrological signs.
Oh, I know. I knew him. He actually talked me out of some shit when he was like that.
Yeah. But it was funny because he was like, I share the same like cusp of like 3 or 4 birthdays, you know, and he was talking about people who were warriors and willing to throw down and willing to fight. And he was like, with Charlie and Ryan Hurley and somebody else. And I was like, oh, what's that? It was like the end of March. And I'm like, I was born March 30th, and I'm a total pussy. So
it was all about that Aries thing being so real. Like, we really are Rams, man.
And I'm like, I'm like a total fucking hippie, man. I haven't gotten in a fight since 8th grade. But whatever. Yeah, for sure. Like, it's funny. Like, I remember a black biker gang. Going back to what you mentioned earlier about those guys, I had to work at a bike rally. I worked for a blood bank when I lived down in Florida. And it was a wild experience because I was a phlebotomist. I stuck needles in people's arms and drew their blood for a blood bank. And it was at this like smaller like podunk kind of bike rally. And it was, you know, like northern Florida's like the deep south. It's not like Miami. You know?
Oh no, I know.
And like,
oh my god.
And it was in the middle of nowhere. And it was weird to me because I mean, obviously it's like a cultural norm there to see Confederate flags everywhere, but man, were there a lot of Confederate flags.
That's
like
fucking scary.
Fingerless gloves with the Confederate flag on them, like the whole nine. And like as we were wrapping up and getting ready to drive our little bloodmobile out of there, I see like a line of nothing but African American bikers pulling out, and the name of the club was Buffalo Soldiers. Like the Bob Marley song, you know? And I was like, that is the most badass. Those are the most badass dudes that I will see
fucking cool.
this year and probably next year.
What kind of bikes are they driving?
They're all Harleys. They were
all
shit,
like, yeah.
They weren't on Japanese bikes at all.
Yeah,
like,
these ones were. Actually, you know what? It was weird. It was like a stretch of fucking American bikes and then a stretch of sports bikes.
Yeah.
It was weird.
They were definitely like a traditional looking bike gang.
That's
like
awesome.
They all had like
leather
cuts or
and
whatever
shit,
they're called. Yeah, and with the rockers on the back, and they're all on Harleys and it's Buffalo Soldiers. I was like, those are tough dudes. Like,
fucking
it's awesome.
All right, boys, you guys wanna?
Just one thing I want you to write down. I thought of it when you were talking about your Harlem story. A fake cop story. We gotta bring that up next time.
Oh yeah, man. I just gotta piss so bad. We gotta.
Yeah. No, let's wrap it up. I don't want to.
You gonna dance?
Yeah, sure.
That's what we do.
Down to dance. I've known this is dance.
too.
Do we actually put on music or do that?
Oh,
later?
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a pre-programmed demo on the Casio keyboard.
remember how.
It's different every time.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it sounded like the second time.
It's really loud. Oh, this is the first one. This is the OG one.
Yeah, this is the one I try to do.
You down every day.